Yes, so I'm Isobel. I do have a very strong Scottish link. My family is actually from Dutton, so I am actually mostly Scottish. So I'm really pleased to be able to talk to you guys today. So today we're going to cover church plans. I'm going to give you an introduction to the Church's Conservation Trust, and then I'm going to talk about our strategy, and then I'm going to talk about what are church plans and why we use them. We're going to have a look through the contents of the plans, and then I'll give you a few examples of where we've seen successes from using them. Bear with me, my screen's not moving on. There we go. So we are a national charity. We currently care for 357 churches. So I look after the West region. I've got 19 churches that I look after myself in Gloucestershire and Oxfordshire. My team look after 120. There's 5 of us to do that. So we have a lot on our plates because it's a big number of churches. So the CCT was originally established in 1969 and acquired its first church in 1971, which I've put a picture up here. This is St. Peter's at Edlington. Originally, it was called the Redundant Church Funds, and that's still sometimes people refer to us as that, but we are the Church's Conservation Trust. So they were set up because really there was no formal mechanism for what to do with churches once parishes were no longer in the position to be able to take care of them. So that's where the idea originated from. So this is our funding model. So we do get money from the Department of Culture and Media and Sport, and we get money from the General Synod of the Church of England by the Church Commissioners. However, we have come across a bit of a problem because in 2010, the DCMS cut our funding quite a lot. So we're now in a position where we need to raise additional funds in order for us to be able to take care of our buildings, to be able to do the annual maintenance, to be able to repair them when needed. So this is where the idea of church plans and our new strategy has come in. So this is our strategy map. So how we empower and support communities to care for their historic places of worship. So the central pillar of the CCT's strategy, this is our 2019 to 24 strategy, focuses on engagement with communities. This is a direct recognition of the fact that when a community takes the church into its heart, using and caring for it, it's recognised as an integral part of that community. And it places in the most sustainable position for its future and future generations to enjoy. The wording within the strategy, empowering and supporting communities to care for historic places of worship, gives a clear mandate to our staff to identify and work with communities and volunteers to form sustainable plans for each CCT church. So we say a CCT church that is sustainable is well used by its communities. It generates sufficient funds for the maintenance that keeps it in a good state of repair, and it enables additional fundraising for specific repairs and improvement projects. So to make this happen, they've employed a team of local community officers, of which I'm one. And our job is to build key relationships with the communities and volunteers. And the aim is for us to be able to work with those communities to co-create and manage and develop our church plan. So I've kind of covered a bit of this already. So what we've got in the church plan, we cover information on the church's history, significance, maintenance, basically combining all of the information that we have on the church into one document, so that if you're wanting to talk about that church, you've got one source of information. We then include information from communities, their recommendations, and then the idea is that their recommendations form our goals that we're going to try and achieve moving forward to make the church more sustainable. So we have short, medium and long-term goals. So our church plans, the idea is for these is that they're a tool for communication, hopefully inspiration, and latterly motivation. So I just thought I'd talk a bit about why we use them. I hope you're enjoying the pictures. These are all my own. So so church plans. So the idea about them is to kind of establish a conversation with our communities. The communities can be all different sizes, but it's giving them all an equal voice and making sure that everybody is heard and capturing all the information that they give us into one place. It gives us something that if anybody new comes along, we can give them a church plan and they understand kind of what conversations have already happened. And because of the information that's included in them, it's also like what priorities there might be, so that they're kind of, when they're thinking about the church, they're thinking about it like in an informed way. We also use them to increase the communities. So if there is no community, it gives us opportunity to try and find communities through our surveys. If there is a community, it helps us encourage them to expand the network, because there's so many things that we're always trying to do to look after these churches and making them sustainable. And one of the key things here is making them aware of the maintenance costs that is associated with each one of our buildings, because it does take a lot of money to look after a church. They are big buildings. They do like to leak. People do seem to like to steal the lead off them. So it's good that we kind of let the community know about the costs associated. And there are things like utility bills as well, which sometimes they're not aware of. So it's a way to engage them with the fact that there are costs associated with the building. So then we want the church plans to empower them. So the idea is that they're co-written, that it is the community that informs them. We want them to have clear, achievable kind of goals set in them so that they are able to move forward with anything that they might want to do with a church. It gives them kind of methods and ways to do things. It gives us a chance to give them the information that might help them. So say they want to do something like cleaning a church, we can give them cleaning guidelines. Say they want to do a fundraising project, we can give them guidance that will help them get that fundraising using other people within CCT, like our fundraising team. So it's a good way for us to provide tools for the community to empower them to be able to make their building more sustainable. So the other thing is, as I've said, it's kind of the same as empowering them, but supporting them. So we are, as LCOs, we support them at their events. We go along and help them. We can support them to this. We can signpost them to resources and sharing best practices. So if we've got other churches that have had a really successful event, we can share ideas with them, and it's a good way to get them all to like network with each other so that they can share best practice. We can also link them with external partners that might be able to help them, which is a bit like National Churches Scotland we're talking about before. We try and do that. It feels like we probably need to have a look at National Churches Scotland, because it sounds like they do it very well. And then we can help with the marketing of any event, promoting it online, helping with posters or anything like that. And then helping them, supporting them by evaluating what's happened. And then when we're thinking about things that we're going to do in the future, that evaluation allows us to think, was that a good thing that we did? Did it bring more people in? Did it bring in more money? Is there something different we could do? So we've got that option to kind of support them with what ideas they might use going forward. So I'm just going to go through the contents of a church plan. So they are quite lengthy documents, because remember, we are trying to include all of the information into one document. So they are around 21 pages long, but it is a great tool. It is a great basis for when you're starting a conversation with somebody to have all that information together. So we start with just an introduction, like I've done today, just explaining kind of what our strategy is and what the church plan is going to have in it. hope you're enjoying this picture. This is Wallingford here. This one's actually got a stage in it, so it's a bit unusual. So then we talk about so I was talking about gathering that information. So the current status of the building, the condition of it, where it's situated. Is it in a town? Is it on a family estate? Is it in a farm? You know, there's all different kind of places our churches are. That listed building status. So maybe it's 2-star, so it's got really significant pews in it, like box pews, like a little washboard, one of the ones I look after. And then the history of it, so a bit of information about when it was built, the phasing of the building. And then any links to any important people or anything that's really special in that church that we want to highlight goes into this. Now, if anybody's done like a conservation management plan, it's very similar to kind of the statement of significance that you would find in that. So then we talk about what's currently happening in that church. I think this is really important if somebody's going to come along and join a community, that they understand what's going on. So I've got a picture here from Tetbury. This is a service for their Founders Day that I went along to, and they lit the chancel up there with the beautiful little tea light. So talking about, you know, so are there services? Do walkers want to use that church? Do the community use it already? Is it hired at all? And then what volunteers we have. So there are volunteers that sometimes we've got a lot of volunteers, but they want to do something specific. So we kind of highlight if they're only interested in opening and closing the church, if there are people who are really into fundraising, which is great, if there's somebody who acts as a key holder. So we make sure we've listed that in the voluntary activity. And now this is quite a lot of words on a page, but this is the collection review. So this is all of the different bits that we know about the church. So this covers, bear with me 1 second. Make sure so this covers if the church is open, are there any volunteers involved? So that we've got little, I don't know how clear this is on your screens, but you'll all have a template afterwards. So things like, do we have an area volunteer that looks after a few churches? Is there somebody who looks after fundraising? Is there a key holder? Just kind of setting out who's there in a simple format. Is there parking at the church, the signage? Who owns the churchyards? So I think we own 40 churchyards out of the 102 that we have in 120, sorry, that we have in the West. So it's important to know if we own the churchyard, if it's open as well for people to be buried in it. So that's one of the important bits that we've put into here. Like, are there pews or bells or an organ? What's the capacity of churches for an event? What's the security like for the church? How is it promoted? And any commercial activity that takes place. And then, very importantly, a bits of health and safety information. So if we've got a risk assessment for the building. So all of that is on there. And what I'll do is when I provide the template, I put all of the different kind of options in there, and then you can just select if you want to use a similar kind of template in the future. And then we start getting down to the money side of things. So I've put in an example here. I won't tell you which church, but it's breaking down the costs so that we're able to, it's basically getting the information from the conservation team about what it actually costs to look after a building and making sure that the community understand it. So this annualized maintenance cost is something we've worked out on the cost of what it would take to look after a building for 25 years, each different element, so roof repairs, pews, doors, all different whatever elements, window repairs, and then it's dividing it by 25 to give a figure. So each church that we look after has a different figure for this. And then there's the routine maintenance costs. So we have people who come around twice a year, who clean out the gutters, who just check there's no slip tiles or anything. So that's the routine maintenance cost. And then this gives us an opportunity to talk about other repairs that we think are going to be happening at the church. So at this one, we think they might need their rainwater goods repairing, and it sets amounts against that. So when we're talking to the community, they understand kind of what amount of money is needed for each of these tasks that we're trying to achieve. So it goes through all of that. And then continuing on the money line, so we include the income and the expenditure. So a lot of churches seem to feel like they bring a lot of money in, but actually when you look at it in the tables, what they bring in compared to what it costs to look after that building are vastly different. So this is an opportunity to kind of explain that difference. And it shows kind of it's a way of telling them what's come through the wall safe, so they understand that, what's been raised through events, what's been raised through third-party hire, and then where the expenses happen. So one of the key things in this is setting out what money has been spent on that church, because before there wasn't a way to communicate that we had actually spent money on a building. So this gives us an opportunity to do that. And also one of the key things that we've put in here is the utilities costs. So that electricity, because previously they didn't know, they were running events, they were thinking the events was like making loads of money, but actually with the way that electricity costs are these days, a lot of it was going on actually running the event, so the lighting, running an urn for an event. So it's good to kind of have those bits of information in there. And then there's it kind of shows how the income that's coming compares to that annualized maintenance cost that we think is going to need to be spent on that building. And it's just highlighting kind of where we need support. So the last bit that's in this current report is our section. So as local community officers, we write a little bit about what we think about the church. So we talk about the community levels in it, any opportunities we can see for growth, so that we want the voice of the community to be there, most of it, but we also want to make sure that the local community officer, which has been working with this church, has also had their opinions put in. So, and we talk about any limitations. So, is there no parking? Is there no community? We would note that in this section. So it's quite a big section, part A. Then we go on to our community engagement. So it started off with a survey that they sent out so our church plans were launched in 2020. So we started off with a survey that we sent out, and the aim was to send this out to 15 different people that we could find in the community. So we did a community audit, and then we sent the survey out to them to fill out. And it was a way to get their opinions and what they thought. We've sent them with the survey, we also sent them part A. So we sent that kind of financial information. And there are questions in here about what they think about part A, what they think about the costs, whether they might be interested in supporting it going forward. So this was the start of the conversation with communities. So I've given a list of a few of the kind of people that we would send it out to. And then the next section is where we've had so what the idea is that we have meetings with our communities, whatever size they are, whatever they look like. I will talk about that a bit later. But we had meetings with them, and the idea is they're either online or in person, and we minute those meetings so that everybody's opinion that's been expressed, it has equal weight, and we include it in this document so that it can be shared. And these go on our website so everybody can see them. So we do anonymize them, but it does have like everybody's different viewpoints in it. So these are some of the kind of topics that I've been covering in the ones that I've been doing. So I'm quite new to the role. I've been doing this job for 7 months. I've had to do 19 church plans in those 7 months. So in those, we've kind of covered all of these topics. So fundraising, in these meetings, I talk about these maintenance costs. I refer to that part A section, and then we talk about different things that we can do to increase footfall, or is there a broken wall safe, what we can do to fix that, what they want, how can they improve access to the building, because we have an open churches policy. So it's about making sure that the churches are open as much as they can be. We can talk about interpretation. So we've got different options that we can help them with, like a guidebook or walk around kind of boards that they can use. And we could also talk about camping. So this is an idea where you can camp in the church overnight, which is has been led by Churches Conservation Trust. It's one of their key ideas. So we talk about whether they would be comfortable with that happening in their church. And then we talk about like the potential to widen the network. So say we need different aspects where we could find people who might be able to help us with different aspirations for the church. And the aim of this conversation is to then create an action plan. And I think this is a very key part of it. So I have actually included one from our church, and I promise I didn't choose the one that had the most actions complete on it, but this one does. But so we set out short-term actions, that's things that we want to achieve in 6 months, medium-term actions, that's 18 months, and then long-term, which is 3 years. And it's a way of ensuring that we don't go away from those meetings without the community understanding what they're meant to be doing and the local community officer knowing what they're meant to be doing. And sometimes they're the same, and sometimes those tasks are different. And then we also have, so CCT actions other, that's other people within the organisation that we might want to bring in to help. So do we need more information from conservation about something? Do we want to do a grant funded project? Do we need to bring in fundraising? Just gives us an option for that. So there are examples like reviewing the use for church services, and there might be a church that doesn't have many services. Gives us an opportunity to try and encourage them and make sure that the collections from those services, sometimes there's difficulty with getting them to come to the church. So it's about making sure the community and we communicate that with the incumbent. So it's all different things that they might cover, but it's a way of actually laying it out in a easy to read format, and something that you can then at the next meeting go back to, see where you've achieved things, see where you need to move things. So this is a live document. So each version on the front page, there'd be when it was last updated. But the idea is this is something that evolves all of the time. It's not written and then it's done. It's something that you keep renewing every time you meet. Anytime there are developments, you update the action plan, you include that in the recommendations. If you've not got a community, then you send out that survey again. So the idea is that you keep this to keep developing them so that they're a live document. And then we've got some appendices just to explain some of the things we might have discussed in this plan a little bit further. So one of these examples is what is the yearly visits we do, what kind of things that might cover. And then we've got like information and champing, because so champing is something that some communities might not be keen on because they think it's a certain audience that are going to come in and like have a massive party in the church. And so we kind of explain who our audience is and give them more information on that and show them what kind of funds can be raised from it. So it's a way of communicating things that might just need further clarification. So I was just going to talk quickly about the different community scenarios we have. So some churches, there isn't a community, but that survey that we're doing gives us an opportunity to try and find people. And in some, there is a community, but they don't want to do any activity. The church plan gives us a gives us an option to show them why there is a need for action. We may have a community that are focused on one task, so they might just be interested in repairing the wall paintings. The church plan gives us a way of noting that and looking at how that can be moved forward. But it can also tell them other tasks that might need doing that might have a priority. So it gives us an opportunity to talk about, as CCT, the priorities for us, which is keeping the place dry, that kind of thing. So then there are established friends groups. So this is an opportunity for them to feed into CCT and CCT to feed into that friends group, so that we're actually communicating together and working together. And then there are some where maybe what they want to do doesn't align with CCT priorities. Again, that's kind of similar to what I've said before, where we can kind of explain. It gives us an option to talk about things and explain kind of why we're not able to do something, or why we might need them to go and find somebody to do something because there's not the capacity within CCT. With 357 churches, it is quite tricky to do everything that we want to do, so we have to have those priorities. There are churches where people want to do all different things, and a church plan gives us a chance to bring everybody to the table, and we keep working with them until there is a consensus. So if there isn't, we keep working with them to then format a plan to move forward. There are some groups who actually quite liked the fact there weren't church plans and quite liked getting on with what they were doing in their churches beforehand. So that's a way, so church plans are a way for us to explain sometimes why we need them to work with us. So for example, we need them to complete a booking form because otherwise they're not covered by insurance in our buildings, and we need risk assessment completed. So it gives us an option to explain some of the legalities why they need to work with us. Yes, so and then multiple community proposals, but no consensus, I've kind of covered already. So I'm going to just share a couple of success stories. This is one from my patch. This is a Oxfordshire idea that's been born from church plans. So this is 3 different churches that are working together. Actually, Newnham Mirren Church is the lead on this, and they were looking at a way to raise funds, and they discussed lots of different ideas, but one that really stuck was this idea of a sponsored walk. And this, what they've done is they've linked with another charity called Floatability, who have boats on the Thames and do work with different communities. And they work together to do a sponsored walk and boat ride. And this event has run twice now. Last year they raised £4,000. It was split between CCT and Floatability. Lots of people participated in the picture there. You can see the neighbour who lives next to Newnham Mirren Church uses her garden to put on an amazing spread. The weather was stunning this year. It was very hot. But it's a good route, and it's a good way that we actually connect 3 of our churches together, because they're all on a walking route that you can actually get round to. So I think next year this event they're going to have a year off, but they're then going to look at maybe doing something the following year. So it's been really well received, and lots of people involved from across the community, from the Rotary group and the school. So it's been a really nice way that the church has been the heart of that community while this project's been going on. And then I was going to talk about a kind of smaller project that I've done. This is Lassington, which is in Gloucestershire. So I had a community church plan meeting with 3 different people. So it wasn't a big group. And we just talked about, I was talking about Heritage Open Days and could we get the church. So this is just a tower. So this is there's no actual like indoor space, no electricity, no water. Their main interest is the churchyard. So I worked with them to create a plan where we were where they were getting funding to get the churchyard maintained. As you can see, it looks beautiful in the central picture. So we ran an event on the 17th of September, and I don't know if anybody remembers Heritage Open Days, but it was rather wet. But we still, despite this, we still had 60 people that came to the event, and we still raised 200 odd pounds for this event, and it gave us an opportunity to get the door open. You can see one of the volunteers, a little dog in there sheltering from the rain, and there were amazing cakes. But I think this was a really good example because it's a tower that has no indoors, no electricity or anything. It just shows that you don't need that much to be able to do quite a lot. And if it had been a warm day, I think this would have been a really good event, and this will be something that we repeat year on year. So it was very fun to go along with too, and the cakes were amazing. And then I was just going to talk about Portland. This is in Dorset. So we have another church called Privet in Hampshire, and they have done a flower festival, which was really successful as a fundraising activity. We were talking to Portland in the church plan meeting about this activity, and they decided that they would be interested. So they actually worked with the Privet volunteers to launch this event. They got guidance from them, and we were showing best practice. They've also they were doing some activity in the churchyard, which wasn't really discussed with CCT. So church planning kind of gave us a way to communicate with them and work out a way forward. So they now work with the Dorset Wildlife Trust to look after that churchyard. They've created some items that they sell to fundraise. So it's become a really active and engaged community with CCT and what we're trying to do with our buildings. And they were actually put forward for a Marsh Awards, which is our volunteer awards. So the picture on the left is them receiving their award and having a little drinky poos to celebrate. And you've got the church in the background there. So a really good success story. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions, let me know. I've just put the website up. I know that Marissa shared it earlier. And my email, if you want to get in touch with me, we will be sharing a template at the end of the, I think Sarah's going to send it out to you. So you've got a template to follow. And I will also be sending some links to some of the ones that are completed on our website, probably some of my favorites. Yeah, just do get in touch.